happy little games. Arcade manufacturer Technos. If you were an arcade goer growing up in the 1980s, this was a company you knew all too well. They released arcade classics such as Karate Champ, Super Dodgeball, Renegade, Double Dragon, and the greatest arcade wrestling games of all time, WWF Superstars and WWF WrestleFest. The hits were not just seen in the arcades though, but also on the various home systems as well, including River City Ransom, an expanded version of Double Dragon, which some say is even better than the arcade original, and various kunio-kun titles in Japan. There was one style of gameplay that Technos seemed to excel at, and that was the Brawler. After releasing such innovative titles as Renegade and Double Dragon, Technos wanted to up the ante and release a 3-player simultaneous game which goes by the name of the Combatribes. Why do people continuously refer to this game as the real Double Dragon 3? So get ready to fight because it's time to play. This is the history of the Combatribes. The year is 1989 and Technos Japan is developing 2 high-profile IPs at the same time. The first one is the fantastic WWF Superstars and the other one is the Combatribes. Halfway during development, the higher-ups at Technos wanted a 3rd Double Dragon to be released that same year, but the founder of the series, Yoshihisa Kishimoto, was knuckle-deep into the production of the Combatribes and WWF Superstars. Mr. Kishimoto had created the Kunio-kun series, which paved the way for Renegade in the West and Double Dragon. They ended up handing over the reins to East Technology to develop the 3rd Double Dragon game, which is why it turned out to be such a massive turd. If you're curious about the history on the creation of this game, I've done a video on it and will provide a link to it at the end. This would be Mr. Kishimoto's first 3-player simultaneous game, and he continued to build upon what he started with the original Kunio-kun. The Combatribes was released in the arcades in 1990 by Technos. As the story goes, the Combatribes are a group of 3 vigilantes that protect New York City from various gangs. Their former member, Martha Splatterhead, is captured by one of the biggest crime syndicates and is turned into a cyborg against her will. As a member of the Combatribes, you must track down the big boss and try to locate the whereabouts of Martha Splatterhead. The game is a side-scrolling brawler with a button for punching and a button for kicking. In all honesty, it feels like a much superior version of Renegade, which definitely is not a bad thing. The areas are broken up into 1 or 2 stages, but with a large number of opponents to defeat in each one. Something that is different though from other beat-em-ups is that just because you defeat the boss, you also have to take out the enemies as well before you can advance to the next stage. The 3 fighters you have to choose from are Berserker, who is the most well-rounded fighter in the game, but he's also a dead ringer for one of the Lee brothers from Double Dragon or Guile from Street Fighter II. Belova is extremely strong, but his speed is on the low side, and finally Blitz, who is not very strong but is extraordinarily fast. The game takes place across 6 levels with lots of variety from stage to stage. As I mentioned, you have a punch and a kick button along with a variety of other moves. Each character does have a few unique moves assigned to them. Double tapping the joystick in either direction will make your character run and allow you to perform a running attack. Once you punch your opponent a few times, he becomes stunned and you can perform a throw. By doing this, it will knock out any enemies directly in front of you. When an enemy is on the ground, you can pick him up by his feet and give him the big swing that would make WWE superstar Cesaro proud. The spinning enemy will hit any surrounding enemies as well. Depending on which character you choose determines how much damage is done. Belova will spin 5 times, Berserker will spin 3 times, and Blitz will spin twice. If an enemy is laid out on the ground, you can do a flying knee attack on him. Another welcome addition is the pavement smash, in which you can grab the enemy's head and make him kiss the pavement, similar to me kissing my Farrah Fawcett poster when I was 7 years old. You are vulnerable to attacks while doing this, so you must be quick. And then finally, we have the double noggin knocker, which if timed right, will allow you to grab an opponent with each hand and smash their heads together. The game uses a fair amount of blood, especially when performing the more brutal moves such as the double noggin knocker or the pavement smash. There are no melee weapons available, but it is possible to pick up pinball machines and motorcycles to throw at your enemies. As I mentioned, each character has his own unique set of moves. For example, Blitz uses a flying jump kick, Belova has a running clothesline, and Berserker has a running knee kick. I was surprised this game had so many wrestling moves, from the headbutt, to the clothesline, to the body slam, among others. The enemies are absolutely relentless, and you will encounter 7 or 8 on screen at the same time. Thankfully, most of them can be dealt with rather swiftly, but you do have to be on your toes. The game does get rather difficult rather quick, and once again, it's designed to be a quarter muncher. You will take damage no matter how you cut it, but how much damage you take is entirely up to you. The enemy types are nice and varied with stage-specific adversaries. You'll face off against bikers, clowns that look suspiciously like Jack Nicholson's getup in the 1989 Batman movie, right down to the same hat that he wears, other random clowns, skater freaks from hell, punk riot, security guards, and military men, among others. The game takes place across 6 levels, with each one broken up into 1 or 2 areas. The levels you will encounter are the motorcycle nuclear warheads, the demon clowns, the Splash Skate Screamers, the Stadium Barbarians, the Demolition Troops, and the final battle. The bosses you will encounter are Fats, Salamander, Slash, Windwalker, Blaster, and finally Martha Splatterhead, who has been turned evil. If you can successfully defeat the various enemies and take out Martha, you are treated to a very quick ending sequence. The graphics are excellent with large, colorful, detailed sprites and smooth animation. The attention to detail, especially in the backgrounds, are extremely well done and, as I mentioned before, also have a lot of variety in between. The music is average at best, but the sound effects are extremely well done with authentic New York sounds and loud grunts and groans, the likes of which I haven't heard since my wife was constipated. Now, why do people think that this game should be labeled as Double Dragon 3? I guess it has to do with the same developer being on this game and it also being a side-scrolling brawler similar to the beloved franchise. Truth be told, I can see the similarities, but Mr. Kishimoto has said there were other options and ideas he wanted to explore for a third Double Dragon that just would not have fit within the confines of this game. The controls are nice and tight with you having complete control over your character with fast responsive movements. Overall, the game was a lot of fun to play, especially in 3-player mode.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
そしてまたまた格闘ゲームのコンバットライブス、これでもかって感じ。
よく見るとクニオくんっぽいですよね。
まあ発売元が同じテクノスジャパンだからね。
でもスト2に始まった格闘ゲームの流れとは一味違ったコミカルな味を出してるんじゃないですかね。あ、このエレベーターのシーンなんいいアイデアですよね。
これからは戦いそのものより場面設定なんかにオリジナリティを出していってほしいね。
We only received one conversion of the game, and that was for the Super Nintendo. Graphically, it looked pretty similar to the arcade game with large detailed sprites and smooth controls. The layout of the game is essentially just like the arcade with a few differences here and there. The actual story has been changed and we now have cutscenes in between each level and a slightly different ending. In this version, all 3 of the Combatribes are now cyborgs. Their goal is to rescue a hostage who is being held by a criminal organization known as Ground Zero. Comic book readers from that era might remember an advertisement for the game in which Martha Splatterhead is running her jib and taunting the Combatribes. She even asks, "You wouldn't hit a lady, would you?" So Berserker punches her and says, "Cyborgs ain't ladies." Some other changes include only having 2 players simultaneously instead of 3, the removal of all blood that was present in the Super Famicom version. The weapons were also removed completely. The character of Swastika, as known in Japan, was changed to Blaster. Level 5 was known as the Slaughter Troops, but now was changed to Demolition Troops here in America. You are able to select a different fighter when you continue, which is different from the arcade version. Speaking of fighters, the game includes a primitive one-on-one fighting mode, which is a nice little extra. Initially, you only have access to the original Combatribes, but after you defeat a boss, you are given a code which you can input into the game, allowing you to be able to use that fighter. Nowhere near as robust as Street Fighter 2, but it's still a fun little extra to have. The game was also released on the Wii Virtual Console. There you have it, folks, the history of the Combatribes. This is another excellent brawler from the early 90s and is head and shoulders above Double Dragon 3. It's too bad Mr. Kishimoto never went back and finished up his trilogy of games, but this is a darn good substitute in my opinion. If you've ever wanted the chance to swing somebody around by their ankles or bash their heads into the pavement, then try this game out. You won't be sad you did. Just a friendly reminder on my new YouTube channel, Patman QC History of Everything Retro. The first episode, in which I cover the history of Kenner's Star Wars toys, is up for your viewing pleasure, so check it out if you'd like. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you would like to support me on Patreon, please click the link below.